All right, so you sent over a bunch of articles about these confirmation hearings for Pam Bondi and Pete Hegseth, and wow, um, things got pretty intense.
Yeah.
We're going to deep dive into not just the headlines, but sort of the deeper anxiety swirling around these nominations.
Yeah.
Bondi's up for Attorney General and Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, and both hearings have sparked some serious debate about like what we should expect from those in leadership.
Yeah, I think what's interesting here is that these hearings have become a lightning rod for bigger questions about leadership in America.
Okay.
We're seeing this clash between different visions of like power and accountability and, the role of personal conduct in public service.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Starting with Hegseth's hearing, the allegations against him really took center stage, right? Mother Jones did a deep dive on this, bringing up accusations of sexual assault, alcohol abuse, and this almost cinematic detail of him ordering 3 gin and tonics at a 10:00 a.m. breakfast meeting.
Wow.
It's a deep.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that while Hegseth denies any wrongdoing, he did settle a sexual assault allegation with a non-disclosure agreement.
Right.
And so, for someone seeking a position that requires a top-level security clearance that raises some concerns,
Right.
we have to, we should consider this 1953 executive order
Okay.
that specifically bars individuals who are vulnerable to blackmail from holding national security
Yeah.
positions.
The executive order.
Right.
What's the thinking behind that?
Well, this 1953 order isn't just about infidelity or, financial misdeeds.
Right.
It's about any vulnerability that could be exploited by,
Wow.
say a secret gambling addiction or hidden business dealings.
I see.
It's designed to prevent foreign intelligence from using those weaknesses as leverage to compromise national security.
Right.
So in Hegseth's case, even the allegations themselves, regardless of their truth, could make him a target.
And the New Yorker piece highlighted how Hegseth's supporters went to great lengths to sort of push this nomination through.
All right.
It's almost like a political thriller with these like intimidated witnesses and efforts to influence the FBI background check.
Yeah, and what's troubling here is that these tactics, if true, could undermine the Senate's crucial role in advising and consenting on presidential appointments.
Yeah.
The process is supposed to be thorough and impartial,
Right.
not swayed by political pressure or, these backroom deals.
Right.
And, this intense focus on the allegations themselves might also be overshadowing important discussions about national defense policy.
Absolutely. The stakes are incredibly high.
Absolutely.
One of the most disturbing details was about Kat Dugan, a former employee of Hegseth.
Right.
The New Yorker article describes how her employment records were leaked to conservative media, seemingly to discredit her and discourage her from testifying.
Right. And this raises a crucial question. Are we creating an environment where people are afraid to come forward with important information, even if it relates to national security? How can the Senate fulfill its duty if potential witnesses are silenced?
And let's not forget the financial firepower behind Hegseth.
Oh, yeah.
The New Yorker article mentions megadonors and even Elon Musk getting involved.
No.
It makes you wonder about the influence of wealth on this whole process.
Absolutely. This level of financial backing can really skew the debate and make it harder to focus on the issues that truly matter.
Yeah.
It raises concerns about whether the confirmation process is becoming more about political maneuvering than selecting the most qualified individuals for these critical roles.
Right. And while Hegseth's hearing was consumed by these allegations, Bondi's nomination brought a very different set of anxieties to the forefront, particularly about the potential for a politicized Justice Department.
Right.
The New York Times really dug into this.
Yeah, and this fear of political prosecutions isn't new.
Right.
We've seen throughout history how attorneys general can be pressured to act in the president's interests,
Yeah.
even if it bends the rule of law.
So are we talking about like Nixon and Watergate here? Is that kind of what people are worried about?
Exactly. It's about using the justice system not to uphold the law,
Right.
but to punish political rivals or protect
Let's
allies.
see.
The fear is that Bondi could be pressured to do just that.
And Bondi's past actions, particularly her loyalty to Trump and her decision not to investigate Trump University after accepting a $25,000 donation from his foundation, have fueled those anxieties.
Right. And, that incident, whether any laws were broken or not,
Yeah.
created the appearance of a conflict of interest,
Right.
which erodes public trust in the Justice Department.
Right.
Democrats in the hearing pressed her on whether she'd defy Trump if he pushed for politically motivated prosecutions, but her responses were, very carefully worded.
One detail that really caught my eye was that $25,000 donation from Trump's foundation.
Yeah.
How significant is that in the broader context of Bondi's relationship with Trump?
Well, it adds to a pattern of behavior that raises concerns about Bondi's ability to act independently of Trump.
Okay.
Her history suggests a strong allegiance to him, which makes people wonder if she would be willing to stand up to him as Attorney General if necessary.
And the Washington Post also picked up on this, highlighting how Bondi wouldn't even acknowledge that Trump lost the 2020 election and gave vague answers about pardoning those involved in the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
Right, and these non-answers are significant.
Right.
They leave open the possibility that she might be willing to use her power as Attorney General to advance Trump's personal or political agenda.
Yeah.
Which is a concerning prospect.
But some might argue she's just being cautious, avoiding making promises she can't keep.
Right.
Is it fair to read so much into her silences?
Well, it's possible she's simply trying to navigate a difficult political situation.
Right.
However, for a position as crucial as Attorney General, clarity and transparency are paramount.
Right.
Her evasiveness on these key issues raises legitimate concerns about her potential to act impartially.
And then we have the whole Kash Patel situation adding another layer of complexity here.
Right.
Trump wants him to lead the FBI,
Right.
which has a lot of people on edge.
Yeah. Right.
The Washington Post described Patel as someone who echoes Trump's calls for retribution against his perceived enemies.
Yeah, and if we look at Patel's history, particularly his role in promoting investigations into figures opposed to the Trump administration, it raises serious concerns about the potential for abuse of power if he were to head the FBI.
Right.
The possibility of the agency being used to target individuals for political reasons is a chilling thought.
And Bondi's response to those concerns was less than reassuring.
Yeah.
Basically, she said she trusts Patel to follow the law,
Right.
which, given his track record and alignment with Trump, isn't very comforting.
No, it's not, and it reflects a broader pattern we're seeing with these nominations.
Okay.
A prioritization of loyalty to Trump over experience, expertise, and ethical standards.
Right.
This approach raises serious questions about the future direction of these crucial institutions, and this brings us to a really fundamental question that these hearings are sort of forcing us to confront.
Yeah.
Is character even relevant anymore, you know? When we're assessing someone's fitness for these incredibly powerful offices.
It's a question that's been debated for centuries, right?
Yeah.
But it feels particularly urgent now.
Right.
Reading through these articles, I kept thinking about how personal conduct seems to be taking a back seat to political ideology and loyalty.
Yeah. The Atlantic's piece on Hegseth really digs into this, pointing out how some Republican members of the Armed Services Committee seemed more preoccupied with cultural issues than with Hegseth's actual qualifications to lead the Pentagon.
Right.
It's a concerning shift in priorities, for sure.
Yeah, it was striking to read about senators debating things like wokeness in the military, while Hegseth dodged questions about his ability to handle nuclear codes and make strategic decisions about national defense.
Right.
Felt like such a disconnect from the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, and that disconnect is precisely what's so alarming.
Right.
We're facing these complex and evolving national security threats.
Yeah.
Yet the discourse around these nominations seems to be getting bogged down in, partisan talking points and personal attacks.
Yeah.
Rather than focusing on like a genuine assessment of the candidate's ability to lead.
It feels like the confirmation process itself is being distorted, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
The pressure tactics, the influx of dark money, the attempts to silence critics.
Yeah.
It all feels very corrosive to the ideals of transparency and accountability that should be at the heart of this process.
You're right. The New Yorker's deep dive into Hegseth's nomination detailed how his supporters utilized intimidation and misinformation to smooth his path to confirmation.
Right.
They targeted potential witnesses, suppressed damaging information, and flooded the media with narratives designed to obscure the truth.
Right.
These tactics, if true, raise serious questions about the integrity of the process.
And it appears to be working. The Atlantic described how Hegseth managed to sail through his hearing by relying on vague promises and military buzzwords without offering concrete plans or demonstrating a deep understanding of the complexities of the job.
Yeah, it's a common tactic using rhetoric and platitudes to deflect from a lack of substance or experience.
Right.
And unfortunately, in our current political climate, it often proves effective.
Right. But let's not let Bondi off the hook here.
Yeah.
She's facing similar scrutiny regarding her judgment and independence.
Right.
The New York Times opinion piece was particularly incisive in dissecting her past actions, especially that $25,000 donation she accepted from Trump's foundation while she was deciding whether to investigate Trump University.
Yeah, that incident, regardless of the legality,
Yeah.
raises legitimate concerns about Bondi's ability to act impartially, especially given her history of staunch loyalty to Trump.
Right.
It creates this perception of a conflict of interest that
Yeah.
is difficult to shake regardless of her intentions.
And she hasn't done much to alleviate those concerns with her recent pronouncements.
Right.
She's been very vocal about her desire to prosecute those who investigated Trump, even going so far as to say the prosecutors will be prosecuted.
Yeah, the statements are troubling because they imply a willingness to utilize the Justice Department as a tool for political retaliation,
Right.
which is a dangerous proposition and a threat to the rule of law.
Yeah.
The Justice Department should be focused on upholding the law, not settling political scores.
Right. Mother Jones called her out for what they saw as her feigning ignorance during the hearing, claiming she wasn't familiar with some of Trump's most controversial statements.
Oh, wow.
But honestly, she's a seasoned politician and lawyer.
Right.
It's hard to believe she's been completely oblivious to the political landscape.
Her evasiveness could be strategic.
Oh?
By claiming ignorance, she avoids directly endorsing Trump's most extreme positions, which might alienate moderate voters, but she also stops short of denouncing them, which keeps her aligned with his base.
So she is walking a tightrope trying to appease both Trump and those who are worried about his more authoritarian tendencies. Right.
It's a delicate balancing act with potentially significant consequences for the Justice Department and the nation.
Exactly. And the outcome of this delicate dance will have a profound impact on the direction of the Justice Department and the country as a whole.
And let's not forget the looming presence of Kash Patel,
Oh, yeah.
Trump's pick to lead the FBI.
Right.
The Washington Post painted a rather unsettling picture of Patel, describing him as someone who shares Trump's penchant for retribution and has a history of promoting conspiracy theories.
Yeah, the prospect of Patel heading the FBI is deeply concerning.
Right.
It raises the specter of the agency being weaponized to target political opponents and silence dissent,
Right.
which would be a catastrophic blow to American democracy.
Yeah.
The FBI should be an impartial institution dedicated to upholding the law, not a tool for political vendettas.
And Bondi's response to those concerns didn't exactly inspire confidence.
Yeah,
She simply stated that she trusts Patel to follow the law.
right.
But given his track record and close ties to Trump, that's not particularly reassuring. No, it's not. And it underscores a recurring theme with these nominations, a seeming disregard for experience, expertise, and ethical standards, all in service of unwavering loyalty to Trump and his agenda.
Right.
This approach has the potential to undermine the very foundations of these vital institutions.
From all these articles you sent over, it's clear you're really worried about what these confirmations could mean for the country. And to be honest, so are we. This isn't just some political game.
Right.
This is about, like, the health of our institutions and
Yeah.
the future of American democracy.
Yeah, what we're witnessing is a fundamental clash between power and accountability.
Right.
And if those in positions of authority are allowed to operate without constraints,
Yeah.
if they can wield the power of the Justice Department or the military
Right.
to, settle scores and silence dissent, then the very foundations of our democracy are in jeopardy.
It's striking to me how these confirmation hearings, which can seem so, procedural and dry,
Yeah.
have become this battleground for these larger questions about power and ethics and the rule of law.
Absolutely.
It's like they've become this microcosm of the anxieties that are gripping our nation.
The New Yorker article on Hegseth drew a chilling parallel to the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation hearings back in 2018,
Yeah.
highlighting how the FBI's investigation into Hegseth, much like the Kavanaugh investigation, seems to be flawed, with key witnesses being overlooked and the scope of the inquiry being dictated by political forces.
Oh, wow.
It raises concerns about whether we're getting a full and impartial assessment of these nominees.
It's like history repeating itself, but with even higher stakes this time.
Right.
Back then, it was a Supreme Court seat.
Right.
Now we're talking about the top positions at the Pentagon and the Justice Department.
Exactly.
These are the individuals who will make decisions about war and peace, about who gets investigated and who gets prosecuted.
Right.
The potential consequences are immense.
Imagine a scenario where the Secretary of Defense is beholden to a president who demands unquestioning loyalty, or where the Attorney General is willing to initiate investigations based on political vendettas rather than evidence of wrongdoing.
Yeah, it's a chilling prospect that should give every American pause.
Absolutely.
It's not just some abstract political debate.
Right.
These are decisions that have the potential to impact our lives in very real and tangible ways.
Absolutely.
These positions wield enormous power, and the individuals who occupy them have a profound responsibility to wield that power responsibly and ethically.
Think about the implications for national security.
Right.
The Atlantic piece raised serious doubts about Hegseth's experience and his potential vulnerability to foreign influence.
Yeah?
Can we truly trust someone with his background to make sound judgments about military strategy and the deployment of troops?
Right.
The safety and security of our nation are at stake.
And on the domestic front, the New York Times opinion piece was really a stark warning about the dangers of politicizing the Justice Department.
Absolutely.
If Bondi were to use her power to target Trump's opponents or shield his allies from accountability,
Right.
it would erode public trust in the legal system and create this climate of fear and intimidation.
It's a slippery slope once the rule of law is compromised for political expediency.
Yeah.
It sets a dangerous precedent that can be incredibly difficult to reverse.
Right.
It undermines the very foundations of a fair and just society.
So where do we go from here? What can our listeners do to make sure that those in power are held accountable,
Yeah.
that they act in the best interests of the nation, not just their own political ambitions or those of their allies?
Well, first and foremost, stay informed.
Yeah.
Read beyond the headlines, seek out diverse perspectives, and, don't shy away from asking tough questions.
Right.
The more we understand about how our government works,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to hold our leaders accountable.
Right.
Knowledge is power, especially in a democracy.
That's so important.
Right.
We can't afford to be passive observers in this process. Our democracy relies on active and engaged citizens.
Exactly.
And don't underestimate the power of your voice.
Right.
Contact your elected officials. Express your concerns on social media. Engage in thoughtful discussions with your friends and family.
Right.
The more we raise our voices and demand accountability, the harder it's going to be for those in power to ignore us.
Absolutely. Remember, this is not a one-time battle.
Yeah.
This is an ongoing struggle.
Right?
These confirmation hearings are just the beginning.
Right.
We need to remain vigilant and engaged if we want to protect our democracy from those who would seek to undermine it.
As you process all of this information, here's a final thought to consider.
Yeah.
If personal conduct and past actions are no longer deemed relevant when evaluating someone's fitness for high office, what does that say about our values as a society?
Right.
What message does it send about the kind of leadership we aspire to?
Right.
These are questions that I think we all need to grapple with,
Absolutely.
because the answers will shape the future of our nation.
The stakes are high. And the choices we make as citizens, as voters, as participants in this grand experiment of self-government
Yeah.
will determine the course of our nation.
Right.
We can choose to be complacent and allow power to go unchecked.
Right.
Or we can demand better holding our leaders to a higher standard
Yeah.
and ensuring that our democracy remains a government of by and for the people.
Well said. The choice is ours.